Picture this, a tiny island in the Caribbean, not much bigger than your favorite vacation postcard, producing a conveyor belt of sprinters so fast they make clocks feel embarrassed. They call it sprinting royalty. They call it legacy. They call it Jamaica. And stepping into that lineage, with a Spanish-sounding last name and a humble grin that hides volcanic speed, is Oblique Seville. But before we sprint off, do me a favor. Hit like, slam subscribe, and tell me in the comments, do we crown a new Bolt, or let Oblique build his own kingdom? Let's go. Oblique Seville was born March 16, 2001, in St. Thomas, Jamaica. A rural parish, known more for its hills and sugarcane than Olympic gold. His mother Juliet was 39 at the time, and swore the boy was restless from conception. He was just moving up and down like him a run, she laughed to reporters. If pregnancy is prophecy, Juliet was watching track highlights before the boy even took his first breath. Oblique grew up in a modest household. Not much money, but there was always faith, always persistence, always family. His father, Gerald, was his rock. The man who carried him to early meets, cheered the loudest, and believed when belief was all Oblique had. But in 2018, tragedy struck. Gerald passed away. For a 17-year-old boy, losing your biggest supporter is like having the track pulled from under your spikes. That could have been the end of the story. Instead, it was the beginning. Oblique turned grief into fuel. He ran not just for himself but for the father who once carried him. The education of speed. Schooling was a ladder built on speed. Cedar Valley Primary. Homewood Technical. Then Calabar High, Jamaica's sprinting monastery. Calabar is where boys are forged into men of motion. Champs, the National Schoolboys Championships, is their altar. If you can win there, the world is just a bigger stadium. Juliet recalls her son as the boy who couldn't sit still. The restless energy wasn't just mischief, it was destiny. That's vintage Jamaica. Worship, rhythm, motion, all braided into one. 2019 was Oblique's first thunderclap. Carifta Games in Georgetown. Gold in the 100-meter at 10.24, anchor of the winning relay. Jamaican U20 champion at 10.13, Pan Am silver. This wasn't luck. This was hunger, talent sharpened by grief, refusing to fade into anonymity. 2020 came, and the world froze. COVID shut down meets, silenced stadiums. Many young sprinters fell off the map. Not Oblique. He trained. He sharpened. He prepared. By 2021, he was sprinting his way into the Jamaican Olympic team, reaching the semifinals in Tokyo. A rural boy from St. Thomas now standing where global cameras rolled. That's not just athletics. That's cinema. And then came the dream come true, Racers Track Club. Glenn Mills. The man behind Usain Bolt's legend. Imagine learning physics from Einstein, or painting under Picasso. Oblique got the keys to sprinting's cathedral. Numbers tell the story. 2019, Carifta Gold. Jamaican U20 champion. 2021, Olympic semi-finalist. 2022, fourth at Worlds in Eugene. Painful. Promising. 2023, another fourth at Worlds in Budapest. Heartbreaking déjà vu. 2024, 9.82 at Racers Grand Prix. 9.81 in Paris. Olympic final, 8th. Brutal reminder. Sprinting is beautiful, but merciless. 2025. Breakthrough. Diamond League titles in London and Lausanne. World champion. 9.77 seconds. Lightning in human form. Many crumble after finishing fourth twice. Oblique. He turned pain into blueprint. That's a different breed. Now we get to the controversial part. Everyone wants an easy answer. Jamaicans have sprinting genes. It's lazy. It's reductive. And it's partly true, but not the way people think. Here's the savage truth. Slavery's legacy. Jamaica's population is overwhelmingly of West and Central African descent. The plantation system was horrific, but it acted as a brutal filter. Only the strongest survived the back-breaking labor, the punishments, the starvation. Generations later, those descendants carried a genetic profile leaning toward physical resilience. Not magic. Not destiny. Just history's cruel arithmetic. Demographics. Jamaica is over 90% African descended. Compare that with Trinidad, Cuba, Puerto Rico, all with heavier European, indigenous, and Asian admixture. Nothing wrong with that. But in Jamaica, the concentration of West African lineage is sharper. Culture, here's the multiplier. Genes might load the gun, but culture pulls the trigger. Champs, school track programs, neighborhood races, churches fasting and praying for sprinters. The entire nation treats sprinting like religion. That furnace turns raw talent into Olympic fire. Coaching and structure, Bolt, Fraser-Price, Asapha Powell, they didn't come out of thin air. Jamaica has world-class coaches, legendary track clubs, and a system that scouts, molds, and perfects athletes from teenage years. So let's be real, Jamaica's sprint dominance is not just black genes. If it were that simple, then the US, Brazil, Nigeria, and everywhere else with African-descended populations would dominate equally. They don't. Why? Because culture, opportunity, and coaching matter. Jamaica is the perfect storm. Jamaica made sprinting their national obsession. That's why the conveyor belt keeps rolling. The name, Seville. Oblique's last name, Spanish. Why? Because before the English conquered Jamaica in 1655, the island was under Spain. Colonizers branded enslaved Africans with their surnames. Those echoes survive today. Seville is more than a name, it's a map of colonial trauma. By late 2025, Oblique's net worth sits somewhere around $2 to $5 million USD. Prize purses, Diamond League winnings, sponsorships, appearance fees. Not Bolt level yet, but climbing fast. One global shoe deal could triple it overnight. But the humility is what makes him beloved. He prays. He thanks God. He thanks his community. He's not about limelight, and that humility wins hearts, and eventually, brands. The inevitable question, is he Bolt's heir? Bolt was 6 feet 5 inches, a freak of stride. Oblique is shorter, compact, relentless. Sprinting is stride length times stride frequency. Bolt had stride. Oblique has turnover. Different formulas. Same fire. Bolt was showtime, lightning bolts, dancing, global superstar energy. Oblique is humility, faith, quiet fire. Bolt was carnival. Oblique is church revival with sneakers on. Both are Jamaica. Both are legacy. So what's the truth? Jamaica's sprint supremacy isn't magic melanin. It's history, heartbreak, faith, culture, and yes, a little cruel genetic luck. Oblique Seville, Spanish name, Jamaican soul, 9.77 seconds of proof, is both product and profit of that story. If you loved this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, do nations produce athletes, or do athletes make nations proud? I'll pin the best one. And one last thing, Bolt may have been taller, with strides like freight trains, but Oblique runs like a man racing home before curfew. Quick, dangerous, with the fear of a slipper waiting at the door. That's the Jamaican recipe. That's the island fire. That's Oblique Seville. Thanks for watching.